would you please come forward? If you don't mind, would you say the blessing for us?
Let's pray. Father God, thank you that you love us, that you're with us. Thank you for this community and this city. Pray for these leaders, give them wisdom and grace to do the job they've been assigned to do. Lord, help us to love each other well. May we honor you in everything we do and everything we say. In your name, the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Brian. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Krozik is the pastor, the lead pastor at Grace Church in Monroe. They have recently purchased the former Monroe Elementary campus, and you will be seeing a lot of moving and shaking in the area off of Bold Springs Avenue. We're excited about the direction that he and his church are helping to move our community forward. I would like to call this meeting to order, please. We have all members of the council present. And before we get to approval of the agenda, I would be remiss if I did not mention we are keeping an eye on the coronavirus as well. As you've probably heard in every single newscast over the last week or so, over the last 24 hours, I've spoken with Lori Turner, who's at our Board of Health. I've spoken with Logan, and we have a plan in place here. I've also spoken with Nathan Franklin with the school board and Kevin Little with the county. Updating you as of 4 o'clock, we have 0 confirmed cases in Walton County. And the instructions that I was given by Lori Tanner, she said, if you do feel you might have some symptoms, call the doctor first. Don't take germs or go into a medical facility and expect to not get germs. So if you please would call the doctor first to let him know or her know, to be able to tell you whether or not you need to be tested. She also said she is unaware of whether or not insurance will pay for those tests. That's between you, your doctor, and the insurance company. She also said, just like everybody else has said the last few days, wash your hands, practice good, healthy habits. And with the exception of shaking hands and hugging those you know, don't just randomly grab people and then put your hands in your mouth. Just common sense kind of stuff. But I did want you to know that we are addressing it, and as anything comes forward, we will be passing out information through social media and through the hard media, Sharon and Andrew. And we'll have things up on our website as well. So we're staying on top of that. Next item, might have mentioned this last month, but I was just reminded, City of Monroe was named one of the 50 safest cities in the state of Georgia. This was the second year in a row. Last year we were 50. This year we've moved up to 47, and that's with a pretty tremendous drop in Part 1 and Part 2 crimes over the last 12 to 14 months. Now, moving forward, I need an approval of the agenda, please.
Move to approve.
Have a motion by Ms. Malcolm and a second.
Second.
By Mr. Ross Bradley. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Next, I need to move to the approval of the consent agenda. This is the discussion of the council minutes from February, Planning Commission minutes, Historic Preservation Commission minutes, Downtown Development Authority minutes, and Convention and Visitors Bureau minutes.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nathan Little. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Next, my friend Tish Finn has brought in a couple of students from our Walton County Youth Advocacy Board. Tish, would you like to come up and introduce?
Hi, I'm Tish Finn, and I'm the director for the Walton Youth Advocacy Board. We are a group of 20 high schoolers, Lauren Holly and Peyton Kelly among them. Lauren is a senior at George Walton. Peyton is a junior at Walnut Grove High School. And we're basically a grassroots group who try to affect change in their community with projects that are important to them. So we were at the Capitol last week talking about our current initiative, and I'm going to hand it off to the kids to explain it from here.
All right, cool. Well, we just wanted to let y'all know about a phone-free event that we're holding in a couple weeks. It's going to be March 21st from 4 to 7, and we've noticed a huge problem with everybody looking down. So we've started a Look Up campaign, and we want all of our families to come, and they're going to turn their phones in and enjoy both informative and fun events and just try to bond as a family.
So when the families get there, they will be given these phone bags, and they're to put their phones in these bags, and they're going to give a card that matches their locker. And these phone bags are going to go into the locker, and these lockers are going to be protected by the police department. But yes, that's all.
Yeah. So we recognize that nobody can just turn their phone in, right? So scared that it's going to be taken your whole life away from you. So we did partner with the Monroe Police Department, and they will be protecting your phone. It will be safe, don't worry. And we realize that not everybody is willing to turn their phone in, even with the police there. And so we've let you keep your phone on you, but we have phone police walking around, and it'll be on their shirt. And they will have a megaphone, and if they see you on your phone, they will announce to everybody there that you are a phone addict. You will then be taken to our PVC pipe jail, where you will make a generous donation of $5 to our worthy cause. It's all going to me, so don't mess up. That's basically it. We talked about afterwards, if you do turn your phone in, you get a little goodie bag with a couple of local things in it. And we've talked about partnering with a few restaurants for a 10 to 15% off discount if you have a phone-free meal with your family there afterwards. So if y'all would like to join, these are our current partners. Y'all should have all gotten one of these. And we would love to have you there. It's free for a table if you want to come join us.
Thank you so much.
Are there any questions?
Any questions?
No, thank you. Y'all, I appreciate your coming in. I appreciate the work you're doing to benefit Monroe and Walton County.
Can we leave this for y'all?
Please, ma'am.
go.
Presents?
Yes.
You wanna bring it up here?
Here's the candy, and they can have the papers.
Thank you.
Let's make sure you didn't put something in here like, oh, good stuff. Thank you. We'll pass it around. And Tish, you forgot to give me the nod, but yes, ma'am, y'all please go ahead and go. You don't have to sit through this. Thank you for coming in. Next, moving to public comment. First one to sign up, the gentleman by the name of Chuck Ross. We'll be calling him forward in just a little bit. Now, most, if not all of these comments are regarding regarding the Church Street project. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order. I have one, McDaniel here. And I don't mind, you have up to 5 minutes to speak, and I really don't mind if each of you wants to make your voice specifically heard. We can do this one by one, or I can do a representative of the for group and a representative of the against group, and I have one council member who will be speaking when we get to the time to vote. So why don't we go with the for or the in favor group from Church Street? Those are going to be the letters. Yes, ma'am. Oh, well, if you would like to speak, Ms. Dickinson, that's quite all right, but let's go with fours first, so that'd be you.
Okay, my name is Rita Dickinson. I have lived on Church Street for, I think, 35 years, and I just wanted to say that I am for this. The traffic on Church Street has gotten worse over the years, and they use it like a speed track and just drive very fast. I live in front of Pilot Park, which I do think is a danger for children at the park with fast cars, and I would like to see something done to slow down the traffic.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for coming in. Remaining in the for group, do I have any additional? Mr. Krosick?
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, I do also want to advocate for the measure that you've put into place. My family and I live at 411 South Madison, which is right at the corner of Madison and Davis Street, but also have been building and renovating homes along Davis Street, especially that drag strip there between Madison and Pine Park, and have been in conversation actually for several years now for the desperate need that we do something to address the speed at which people drive on both Davis and Church Street. And really do appreciate the efforts that have gone into place over the last couple of years, including more signage, including one of those little boxes that measures speed. But I've sat on the front porch of one of the houses that we're working on and watched cars clock 50, 60 miles per hour on that little device, almost like it's a video game, beat your best time kind of thing. And so those are ineffective measures. And so we need something that will force cars to slow down. My children love to walk. In fact, we love living in town because we want it to be pedestrian friendly. And they walk from our house down Davis Street, up Bell Street, to Pilot Park, and to their friend's house, the Stewarts, who weren't able to be here, who have their own 5 precious little kids. And, but my concern is cars driving 50, 60 miles per hour unimpeded down those streets is not just incredibly dangerous, it's actually potentially fatal to a child. And I've even seen the engineering. It looks great. It's very unobtrusive. It's not concerning the way that it's built. It's well-researched, well thought through, the plan that you've put into place. I want you to affirm you for that. And, but even to be honest, even if it was painted fluorescent yellow and was a giant, ugly sign, if it saved one child's life, it would be worth it. But you've put a plan in place that isn't ugly, that is attractive, or not attractive, but is effective, and will make a difference. And so I just want to affirm that move forward with this. Thank you. As fast as possible, move forward with this, and we affirm that wholeheartedly. Thank you for your time, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Krosick. Any more in the four camp? Yes, sir.
My name is Jeremy Bauer. I'm actually a new business owner here in Monroe. My business is going to be facing Church Street. My wife and I also bought a property on 400 East Church Street. We've been renovating over that this last year or so. I have 5 kids, small kids, 9 and under. We were out in the front yard later this summer, and we were working on our exterior, new siding, and so on and so forth. They were playing in the front yard, and cars were flying by. And honestly, it was scary to allow them to be in the front yard. We had to move them to the backyard to be able to make sure that they were staying safe. So, we've seen families walk up and down that street. We know there's a lot of revitalization that's going on that side of Broad Street. We know we want families to move in from outside of the city into Monroe to be able to make it more of a walkable city. And the speed at which that happens on Church Street is it's dangerous. And you want to see something that can actually stop and slow traffic down, that it's safe for families to walk and to play in their front yards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer, for coming in. Thank you for investing in Monroe. I think we're moving to the against category. I have Mr. Seibert and Mrs. Seibert are signed up separately. More than happy if you would like to each take a turn, or one of you can speak for both of you, and then we'll move to the next person.
Alan Seibert, resident Church Street, and I am speaking against the project in its current form. Something interesting just came from the 4 group, and that is that if we can get something more attractive, as long as it's effective, that's fine. And that's basically what we're looking for, because we agree with everybody who's spoken already in that something needs to be done for traffic calming. That is absolutely a given. We are concerned that there might be a better way of doing this. The appearance is one thing, and that's an important thing. Primarily, the historic district of Church Street. This neighborhood is very attractive. There must be a nicer looking way of doing this. But we agree it must be effective. More importantly, we believe that there are safety issues. And so there's going to be several people speaking, and they're going to be talking about the safety issues as well as some appearance issues that we think can be better than this plan. So what we are against is the median islands for several reasons, and those will come out as people speak. What was said here is, if you can make it look better, fine, but go ahead with the way it is. I spent most of my working lifetime in public purchasing as a manager, purchasing manager, and I know that once the council votes yes on this, the vendor, rightly so, is going to expect to implement this in exactly the way it was proposed and the way they bid it. And that's all right. So basically, what we are asking is that you wait a little bit. We know you've all been juggling this for a year and are ready to get it moving, but please give us more time. And I think after you've heard the other people speak, you will realize that it warrants more study, more options and ways that we can do this. The big safety, items, I'm not going to go in a lot, and this will be covered later, but there are a couple of things. I did the purchasing for the Walton County School Board for a while, so this one's particularly near and dear to me, is that the information that we got from the engineering company said that this is not a good solution where there are buses. Now, we don't have city transit buses, but there are a lot of school buses that go up and down Church Street. That document said one of the cons of this type of traffic calming is buses, because as the bus weaves back and forth, things can slide off the seats. Our school buses do not have seat belts. Unfortunately, that's another day's discussion. But if a bag, lunchbox, or a child slips off the seat as the bus is going around this, that could very easily lead to an accident. We understand that, or one of our first thoughts was the emergency vehicles going down there are going to have a problem, and we found that, you have time?
1 minute.
Okay. Apparently, the fire chief has already realized the same thing, and some accommodation has been made to make the sides of this sloped instead of a vertical piece of concrete there in the middle of the road, so that will protect the vehicles and protect the island itself, and that's great, but we think that we can go further. So please listen very carefully to the people who bring up these points.
Thank you, Mr. Seibert. I appreciate your coming in. Ms. Green? Thank you for coming in.
I hate speaking in front of people,
You're not in front of people, you're just in front of us.
a lot of people. Well, first of all, I'm asking for more time, another month, not to pass it soon. Because since I just learned about this, and this is not my field of expertise, I've done a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of designing, and so I have some plans that I could present that might be part of the solution. Everybody who is for this and everyone who's against it, all are in agreement that something needs to be done. Where we differ is what is being proposed. And the reason why people who don't want it is mainly safety issues because of the sidewalks. Just this weekend, there was a high-speed chase on my street, right where I live. The car ended up in the green space between the sidewalk and the road. And if there's no space there, that would have been on the sidewalk in a yard, just like I had said prior. And so it happens, and it happens a lot. That same place, a boy got hit on a bicycle, and you would never think that driving down there, that's a dangerous area, because it's not. But just a lot of stuff does happen. That's the reality of it. So if you have these medians it will impede on emergency situations like traffic officers getting to places that they need to hurry up to get to, fire trucks that need to hurry up and get to places. So that's another safety issue, other than just pedestrians on the sidewalk. So I do ask for more time because I know y'all have been working on it for a long time. It's what I hear. The engineers have been working on it for a while. But sometimes things that work in some places don't work in others. And this just is, I feel there's going to be better solutions that would work on our streets. Perhaps y'all haven't seen them yet, and maybe what I propose might be something that you haven't seen. So I think collectively, because that's one thing I told my neighbors, I was like, we just can't go up there and say no. We need to be a part of the solution because this needs to be something that we're happy with because we are the ones that directly affects. Yes, it's for the city, but this is where we call home. So we do want to stop the traffic. We want safety when it comes to police.
1 minute.
One more minute. And another thing, just a cherry on top for me personally, there was a question about, is this going to impose on anybody's driveway? And the gentleman who, he said no, except for one house. Well, guess whose house that is? I learned that it was mine. And I just moved from another house who did this exact same thing. It did not control speeding. And it made me not be able to I could not turn left or right out of my driveway. I would have to turn right every time I wanted to leave my house, go up the street, come around. But on this street, I wouldn't be able to do a U-turn. I would have to go down another side road. So I wouldn't even be able to use the street that I live on effectively. And then the same thing going left, because one is supposed to be right in front of my house. And it's going to affect me directly in a negative way. So I don't want that for sure. But I would like to get these things that I have printed off and sent to all of y'all to discuss if we have the time to do it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, and you did just fine. Ms. Seibert, were you good with him speaking, or did you? No, you're ready. Come on. He said, I completely understand. My wife says the same thing.
Like he said, I think all of Church Street is aware that there is a problem with traffic. And we would like to thank the Chief Watts for having the police officers out this weekend. They have been in force stopping both trucks and speeders. So that's been real nice to see that. Since we found out about this 2 weeks ago, we've made calls to everybody and had neighborhood meetings, and I've walked the neighborhood contacting all of our neighbors, which is why you have seen such a good response here with our neighbors, and that's been great. And we attended the city council work session. Thank you for letting us speak there.
Yes, ma'am.
The medians themselves, if you picture this, they are going to be 15 feet. That is the length of these chairs and the distance of 2 rows. So the median is going to be 15 feet by 5 feet wide in cement with, I understand, brick pavers on them. And there will be 9 of them in a length distance of 0.7 of a mile. And then they will have yellow markings out that will extend, making the median a total distance of 60 feet. And then 2 signs would be placed on each of these medians. The curbs are going to be bumped out 2.5 feet on each side. Now, this is what this diagram shows. One is going to go directly in front of my house, and we did a little mock-up of one. We had people walking down the street this week with their baby strollers. Some of the strollers were double strollers. When traffic was going by, it actually tended to slow the traffic down when they would see a person with a baby stroller. And what the traffic tended to do, they would slow down, but then they would go over the yellow line if that was possible. It's not going to be possible once this median is there. The traffic is going to curve right up to our sidewalk. Our median, the widest point, is a little over 30 inches. So this median, or the curb, is going to come right up to the sidewalk. It is going to be scary to walk along the sidewalk. If you're in a stroller, if you have a toddler walking, this one person had a double stroller, which both of her kids crawled out of that stroller and started walking. If you're in a wheelchair, if you are in one of those rolling wheelchairs, it's going to be scary. I have a 7-year-old grandchild that is learning to ride her bicycle on that sidewalk. I would be scared for her to ride her bicycle on the sidewalk where traffic is curving in to that. Right now, there are currently 2 speed limit signs. The speed limit is 30 miles an hour. You're saying that traffic is flying down Church Street. 85% of the traffic is going slower than 40 miles an hour. Only 15% of that traffic is going faster than that. And I would say most of the traffic that is going faster is from 9, I looked at the traffic study, it's going from 9 p.m. till midnight. And I would guess that it's police cars because they're going to emergencies, police and ambulance. That traffic study was done in August of 2018. I got the traffic study from the engineers. Our concerns, this is a historical neighborhood. There are safety issues. Our housing values may go down. Traffic tie-ups may occur. Every time a garbage truck is stopped, Prime Amazon is there. They're picking up anything. Where there's a median, cars are not going to be able to, they're going to have to stop and go around this. The other thing that we're hearing, and I've heard this from several people, is that the city is going to be selling or renting out the community building to become a school. If this happens, that means there's going to be even more traffic on Church Street. And that means more traffic in the morning for pickup or for drop-off, and more traffic in the afternoon for pickup. This is also something that I'm wondering is going to happen without us being notified about. I was in sales for Xerox Corporation. I worked with county and city government accounts. What I knew was once a bid was approved and I sent those out, the sale was finalized. I had that order. That meant that that order was ready to go, that sale was final, I could install that equipment. What we are asking you is to table the motion, give your constituents the time to work with you to come up with the best option, to slow traffic down and stop the 18-wheelers from coming down Church Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seibert. I appreciate your coming in. I'm going to move next to Ms. Fielder, Sally Fielder, 414 Church Street. Good evening.
You're eating the candy already?
Well, yes, ma'am. They gave it to me right here.
Thanks for sharing. I'm Sally Fielder. I live at 414 Church Street. I bought that house. My husband and I bought that house in '76. We've lived there 43 years. We have seen the traffic come up and down Church Street. We realize our street is narrow. Mr. Dickerson's house, each house beside him sets back a little bit further. That's the only 3 houses. Sets back probably 3 times my distance. I mean, I'm not knocking that. That is where I bought this house. That's where I like it, right there on the street. Mr. Watts had his policeman this weekend sitting down there at the old school building. Hopefully, they've written some tickets. Mr. Watts, can you tell me how many?
No, ma'am. Please address your comments to me and the council.
Okay, well, I thank him for setting those down there. I would love to know how many tickets he has given out in the last 5 to 7 days to tell me for sure that there's all these speeders. You know, we're proud of Church Street. I think of it as a residential street. I mean, I live there. It's not, The minister spoke of Davis Street. That's where he's building his houses. They want speed bumps. That's fine with me. He doesn't live on Church Street. I do. We watch the traffic. We see the people walking. We do feel like that it's taken that 2.5 feet back on each side, that the strollers, the walkers, you're doing a great job with downtown. People are walking downtown. They're walking with their children downtown. They're riding their bikes on our sidewalk. All that is great. I like that. I just don't like these medians. 9 of them, there's 2. One right above me at Millage and Mrs. Cyber's yard. The next 7 are within the half a mile. That is a lot of them, the next 7 of them down through there. This lady behind, that spoke ahead of us says that she has some new ideas. I would ask you to table this so we can get those new ideas on the board and look at those. I'm totally opposed to these medians. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Fielder, for coming in. Ms. Larson? How are you this evening? From 501 East Church Street?
I'm going to skip over some stuff that's already been said, but again, I want to.
Thank you.
It was so nice to see traffic getting stopped. Again, I oppose these medians. Again, we all agree something needs to be done. My point is that nothing has been done. These are the first I've lived here 15 years, first traffic stops I've seen on Church Street. You said you saw a digital sign. I've never seen a digital sign on Church Street. I see them down on McDaniel, other streets. I've never seen one of those signs announcing that you're going over the speed limit on Church Street. I've done some reading and some research since all of this came up. According to what I read, these medians have the potential to slow traffic 3 miles an hour. 3 miles an hour, $220,000. By my calculations, that's $73,000 a mile an hour. I think there are some other things that could be done. Put a stop sign at Felker, keep giving traffic tickets out. Take the money and use it for the Greenway if it can be used there. That benefits the whole town, not just penalizing us for living on what's considered a thoroughfare or whatever it was you all called last week. That's not even counting. Nobody has addressed how long this is going to disrupt our street. I'm looking probably at jackhammers, taking the curbs out and taking stuff out to be able to put this stuff in. We're talking heavy equipment. When is this work going to be done? How long is it going to keep this street tied up? Where is the traffic going to go in the meantime? Again, everybody agrees something needs to be done. I don't think this is the answer. I think there's probably a whole lot less expensive things that could be done and a lot more effective ways. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Larson. Todd Rice. How are you, sir? Would you like to speak?
I'm for it. Am I out of line?
No, sir, you're just fine.
Just making sure. I'm for it. I have 2 kids and one on the way, and we walk up and down Church Street to get into town. I totally understand thoughts, maybe other ideas. I'm guessing you guys have done some due diligence on your ideas, and this being the proposal. Sure, there are going to be people that ignore a barrier, but that's normal. People ignore stuff all the time, but the ability to have something that's going to slow it down to where we can walk down. I've got a 2-year-old boy, and if you guys know anything about 2-year-old boys, I don't really listen to much. So the ability to keep him with me or to know that at least traffic's slow enough that I can grab an arm and pull is exactly what I want. The ability to walk down Church, to bring family down Church, to bring friends down Church, and not have to worry about what's going to happen or who's flying down the street at what speed. So the ability to slow down and move people around something gets us the ability to slow down a little bit. The ability to leave it like it is right now is just going to guarantee more speed for more time, which is a problem, especially when I'm considering we're moving into summer where it's time to start walking down the street again. So I'm for it. I love the idea of it, and I think it'll be a great addition to complement our downtown already.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. I appreciate you coming in. Ma'am, please, you may whisper, that's fine, but I'll run the meeting. Mr. Chick, if you don't mind, I'm going to skip over you for just a second. I think, I can't read the name, Gina from Double Springs Church. Would you be speaking in regards to the Broad Street project? Okay, I'll come back to you. Andrew Kennison, would you like to speak? Okay, great. In all fairness, before we move to any other public comments, do I have anybody else in favor or against who would like to say anything? Not a lot of times that I'm gonna do this, but come on up, please, sir. No, that's okay. I'll get you right here. What's your name and address?
My name is Kevin Oldham. I live at 724 Church.
Thank you.
A while back when I was a bit younger and drove like the people that you guys don't like on Church, I delivered pizzas in Grayson. And it was a 3-mile stretch of road. I don't 100% remember the name of the road, but it had these traffic islands. And they were a lot bigger, and they did nothing to slow traffic down. It was more like a chicane on a racetrack. I'm sure it works on paper, and I'm sure it slows down people who aren't driving fast. But if you're driving fast, it does nothing to slow you down. And I don't also see how this is going to stop trucks. Because the median was 5 feet wide, a truck would just hop a curb. I've seen it a million times delivering pizzas. I don't think this is going to stop the trucks, and it's not going to slow down speeders. It's only going to inconvenience the 90% of the people driving down the road. So
Bless you.
I think like speed bumps or those things that Taco Bell has over their drive-through would fix the problems a bit cheaper and a bit quicker with less disruption. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you for coming in, Mr. Oldham. One more shot for the fors or against. Yes, sir. And I'm sorry, you came in last week. And your name and address, please?
Rich Bauman, 704 East Church. Couple of things. Somebody said, if it's already been said, I apologize. I had to park 3 blocks away. Kind of crowded tonight. But these things won't impede people's driveway. One's going in front of my house, and I know my neighbor directly across the street. Our driveways are like that. So if it goes, it's either going to block mine or block hers. But more importantly, again, is the safety aspect. Some of you may have experienced it, or may know people have had. You've been out having a good time at a party, and you've driven home impaired. And you're just trying to hold on the wheel, keep the car straight, and get home safely. Now you're going to have impaired drivers, and you're going to, 9 times, you're going to divert them and aim it towards people's houses. That doesn't make any sense. People are going to drive impaired. Young kids for a joyride are going to speed, and you're aiming them at the sidewalk in people's homes. That just makes no sense to me. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming in. Mr. Chick, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
You tell me and we'll start timing then.
Because I wrote 3 different speeches.
Don't get halfway into it and then tell me to start.
Mrs. McDaniel, is that
I'll send this here with my warrior runner here. Mr. Oldham, welcome. Glad to see you're here tonight. The 3 different speeches I have, I guess we'll forego 2 questions. One, if we look back at February the 10th, 29 days ago, has a traffic study been conducted for McDaniel Street?
We do have that up for discussion, yes, sir.
So it has been completed?
Yes, sir.
Will the results be discussed tonight?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay. Number 2, have there been covenants received and voted on from the last meeting since the 29th of February?
There have been covenants, those will be discussed as well.
Will be discussed as well. Okay. I would like to hold my comments until that discussion takes place. And then, can I comment after that?
We don't have public discussion on that one
You
tonight.
don't?
No, sir.
Okay. Then I'll go ahead and start my timer.
All right, ready, go.
Yes, sir, go. The digital sign that you talked about for miles per hour on your street will not impede traffic. It won't slow traffic down. It won't do anything. I've lived on McDaniel Street for 29 years. When I walked out of my house this evening to come to the meeting, I heard somebody leave the top of Pine Crest. When I got down the end of my driveway, the digital sign read 71 miles an hour. I live on McDaniel Street, 71 miles an hour. So, I'll start with that. Good evening, City Council members and Mayor. We're meeting again after 29 days, the last time to cast your vote for the approval or vote against the proposed houses on McDaniel Street. As you can see from the model display here, it's actually incorrect. I should have added 2 more houses on my side and another 3 on the other. So the model should show 6 houses with 13 houses directly across the street. When we last met, you had indicated that a thorough traffic study would be completed to analyze the impact of 10 additional driveways in that impact area of road frontage, the present traffic on McDaniel Street. Councilman Dickinson, you said that you're taking your life in your own hands when you run on McDaniel Street. Amen. Councilwoman Malcolm, you said McDaniel Street is now the alternative to Spring Street. Both statements alluding to the substantial increase in traffic flow on our residential street. Councilman Larry Bradley, you are a resident on McDaniel Street. In fact, your home will now face the proposed development of 10 houses facing the current 5. You yourself raised concerns of how we, the current residents, will be impacted by the additional of ingress and egress of the new residents of these 10 houses. We actually stood outside and talked to Mr. Willett and his attorney, who's here tonight, and another council member. To my knowledge, and based on my travel up and down McDaniel Street over the past 29 days, no traffic study, cables, or compilation instruments have been placed on McDaniel Street, other than the flashing slow your car down sign that showed 71 miles an hour this evening. I feel confident in saying no traffic study of any substantial element has been performed. It was a way to appease the residents and make us have false hopes that our concerns would be heard. I realize that Mr. Willett's first 4 houses met the current R1 zoning for the city. I passed the R1 copy of those zoning requirements out at the last meeting. I'm still baffled as to why the ordinance was originally changed as a blanket zoning requirement instead of granting variances as applicable. If you truly have the best interests of the city at heart, you have never approved the substandard requirements. Now we, the residents of the city of Monroe, and more specifically, the residents of McDaniel Street, are left to suffer the consequences of such poor planning and oversight. I know Mr. Willett has agreed to some additional setbacks and promises of larger homes and upgrades on the homes being built on those lots. I'm still concerned about the ability to enforce such propositions since they are not enforceable with your present zoning criteria. At the rendering he presented at the last meeting do indicate grandiose homes, but it remains to be seen how much grand estates can be constructed on the narrow lots that he surveyed. We're still being confronted by too many houses and too many small of space. The lack of foresight and planning accordingly has created this debacle. No one has addressed the stormwater runoff and how the grading and construction will affect the issue. We will now wait and see if the storm drain system will be compromised with the overdevelopment of this area. It truly pains me. It pains me to see the process that we've gone through to get to where we are this evening. All we have done is delay 29 days. I'll forego my minute and 25 seconds, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your time, City Council members. Mr. Willett, welcome to the neighborhood. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Chick. Next, we have, help me out here, Gina Greco? Greco. No, ma'am, you just signed up to say you're here. Well, we appreciate you coming in. And I think that is it for our public comment. Moving to,
Mayor, I believe you have one more.
oh, I'm sorry, Andrew. I thought you waved me off. All right.
Anyway, yeah, so I'm actually here to tell all of y'all who I've gotten to know over the last couple years that I'm leaving Monroe at the end of March. The last day of the Tribune is the 24th, so this will be my last meeting with you all. I've really enjoyed my time here. I've really enjoyed getting to know the city. And thanks for usually answering most of my questions. Yeah, I mean, I haven't always agreed with everything you've done, but you know, I think you all have made a lot of good decisions in my time here, and I know you all have a lot of pride and care about what you do. And yeah, I'm excited to see you come back in a few years and see where Monroe goes. But thank you all for your time. Yeah.
Wait 1 second. Any questions or comments? You want to argue this?
This is dangerous.
What he's written about you?
Yeah, you can wait. If you don't want to tell you what you really think about me, it's fine. Yeah, like,
Now, Andrew, I appreciate the work that you've done for the Tribune, and I've enjoyed getting to know you. And are you at least can leave Jess with us?
unfortunately, no. Yeah.
Dude, we got to talk. Thank you. I appreciate all your work.
Wish you the best.
Now, moving to new business for approval of the major subdivision, Mr. Ross, if you would like to come forward, I'm going to have Mr. Bradley go ahead and read the 2 letters that we had.
That's on the Church Street.
Oh, you're on the Church Street? Okay, I'm sorry. What's up, Mr. Willett? I didn't see you back there. This is purely for council discussion and vote, but I do want you here so you can answer any questions. Do I have any questions for these 2 gentlemen in front prior to moving it to Mr. Kelly?
Mr. Willett, are you willing to put the 50-foot setback within writing on the those proposed 6 lots that it will be applicable to? Yes. I mean, I just want that to follow the land. In the event that, you know, you end up selling these lots or whatever, it will follow.
And those are 50-foot side setbacks, front setbacks?
Front setbacks.
While you're passing those out, I'll read the additional covenants for Mr. Willett's properties. Minimum heated square footage must be 2,500 square feet. Front and sides of homes will have brick and/or stone foundations and fireplaces. All front and side area on dwelling lots will be sodded. A minimum of 5 trees with minimum diameter of 2-inch calipers shall be placed on each lot or preserved on each lot, and this does not include evergreen trees. No vinyl siding allowed. All homes to have 12-foot concrete driveways, roof pitch at 812 or greater. All utilities underground. All homes shall have a minimum 2-car garage. Homes to have 30-year or greater roofing materials, no 3-tab or 20-year shingles. And then the additional 50-foot front setback wherever possible. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a subdivision application made for 945 Holly Hill Road. The lot does front on McDaniel Street, which is the most contentious concern. It basically is a subdivision, but the vernacular is a little bit off. It's a division of land into conforming lots that the applicant has applied for, and it's not a development of a subdivision in that vein. But the applicant is before you to answer any questions, and if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them as well.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Just, before the meeting started, I did serve the clerk and delivered to each of the council members and yourself a copy of our assertion of constitutional rights. That's just something we have to do before you all have consideration of a vote in this matter.
Yes, sir, we have those, and I appreciate your bringing that to my attention. Mr. Probst, would you like to discuss Sam Serio's letter?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So in response to the request for a traffic study, Keck and Wood with Mr. Sam Serio, who was here last week, had been looking into not only the speed, but also the general traffic conditions of that area of McDaniel Street. So the data was derived mainly from that flashing sign that you see out there. It records all data 24/7, so every car that passes, it's taking account and it's taking a speed measurement as well. Let me give you a little bit of an overview of the existing conditions of McDaniel Street. The roadway classification is a major collector. There are two 10-foot travel lanes with a rural cross-section. The speed limit is 35 miles per hour, and the 85th percentile speed is 45 miles per hour. The total vehicles studied during looks like almost a 5-day period was 12,434 vehicles. Highest speed collected was 83 miles per hour, and 14 of those vehicles were over 65 miles per hour. Currently, the traffic control devices in that area, there are 4-way stops at Breedlove Drive, and then you have some up the hill at Selman Drive and Pinecrest, that little area, you can almost call it 5 points. Proposed traffic calming measures, so this is something that we've been looking at in addition to the general study that was asked for as part of this, so this was kind of already on the radar. With an 85th percentile speed, 10 miles per hour above the speed limit, traffic calming measures are deemed appropriate on McDaniel Street. I think that goes without question. The roadway classification of major collector and the existing layout of the road rule out vertical deflection measures, on-street parking, and traffic circles. So that's essentially saying this is limiting what kinds of traffic calming devices we can put in, given the existing curb cuts and the type of roadway we have, deep banks, of course, in that section without sidewalk or anything like that. We've expressed interest in construction of sidewalks along this roadway in the future. I think this council has discussed that as part of the planning effort in the short to medium term range, should we find the funding. And as such, that will add curb and gutter along the sidewalk and allow traffic calming measures to be baked into that one project. So this will be a multifaceted approach to slowing the traffic on McDaniel Street. You'll have sidewalks, curb and gutter, and whatever traffic calming measures would be deemed appropriate. In the long term, the most appropriate classification for a street 35 miles per hour include median islands and small roundabouts. And as for the potential 10 subdivided lots, and therefore the 10 subsequent driveways, this could actually reduce speeding in the area, given the visual friction that is created from additional driveways along the route. I know that can seem a little bit counterintuitive in many regards, but this was well studied by our engineer, and they didn't see a major need in creating any additional amendments to those curb cuts, given their spacing.
Thank you, Mr. Probst. Are there any questions for Mr. Probst, Mr. Kelly, or Mr. Willett?
I have a question for Mr. Willett.
Yes, sir.
And just for clarification for folks about what's going to be built out there. It's my understanding that the projected cost to the consumer for these lots is $90,000. Is that correct? So I think just that fact alone alleviates any concern about what kind of houses are going to be built. If you pay $90,000 for the dirt and you're building a 2,500 square foot house, you're talking a $500,000 project. And the only other thing I wanted to say on this thing about the visual friction, I was reading an article about that today, as a matter of fact, in the Strong Town material that I know some of the council members get. It really works. I was amazed. I'm like, wow. So I think maybe that will help. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson.
I have a question, maybe it's from Mr. Probst, but, and as Mr. Willett is dividing this or putting in driveways, does the sidewalk and traffic calming issues planned for the near future need to be factored into that at the time? Would it make any difference? If he had plans that we could work around some of that?
Yeah, and that'd be something we would like to with them on the front end, in the code office as well as my office as we start planning that, in the future. How we're gonna do the drainage. I know drainage is a big concern in front of the property. But if we can go ahead and get ahead of that as much as possible without retroactively coming back and tearing up what you do and costing the city extra money, that would be a big help.
And I guess the other question is, that from a stormwater standpoint, is there any way to measure the effect of what this development will do to the stormwater in that area? Or is it gonna make it worse, better?
We haven't quantified what that would be. I would imagine if it was generally piped, it's not gonna create a huge difference.
I know part of that, going through part of the property, I think we have some right of way for the city through there, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We do. It depends on how that's channeled. I couldn't answer that right now, Mr. Bradley.
I have a question for Patrick.
Yes, ma'am.
Patrick, when we have approved other R1 developments, through the development regs, that developer is required to put in sidewalks in front of each lot. Now, is this going to be a requirement that they would have to meet as well?
Well, based on the development pattern of the road being curb and, it's not curb and gutter at this time. What they would be required to do is just pipe their crossing for their drainage ditch and put in the driveway over that, just like the remainder of the lots on that neighborhood that are adjacent to ditches. One thing that I would want to mention too is that the maximum lot coverage would be 40% of the lot, which is kind of baked into the zoning ordinance as far as considerations for future development in our drainage. And if that 40% were to affect the stormwater system overall to the city, then it kind of be on both parties at least to consider how that's affecting it, and potentially the city to upgrade the storm drainage, since we considered the 40% lot coverage maximum when we developed the R1 zoning classification. So being a rural road, a rural profile like it is with the ditches, it remained that way.
But if our objective within the next 24 months or less is to install sidewalks, would it not be more proactive to go ahead and address that now?
Yeah, we would probably need to work with Mr. Willett on making that grading and whatever's done there as readily retrofittable to what we have planned or coming up in the future, so that will minimize the cost of doing it down the road.
Down the road.
So, I mean, we wouldn't want any giant swales or huge berms or plantings or anything that would impede that. And so if he would consider making sure that those things aren't in our way at that point, it's all in the right of way, so probably it won't be affected, but we'll work with them together to make sure it's easily retrofittable.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Are there any additional questions for Mr. Kelly?
What they have now, are they set to be able to build houses?
I'm sorry.
Are they actually applying with the rules of the walk with the city? They in compliance with what they're trying to do?
What they have proposed complies with the zoning ordinance, 100%.
Do they have sidewalks on McDaniel now?
No, sir, not in that area.
So is Lee asking them to do sidewalks now?
No, I'm asking them, when they start their stormwater, when they address the stormwater, that they cooperate with the city and look at the long-term plan and hopefully work together so it doesn't have to be redone.
Gotcha.
I mean, it just, to me, seems, because we hope that that's going to come about sooner than later.
Right. Any other questions?
Just a curiosity. I know it's probably too soon to know exactly what houses are built on what lot, but it says a minimum two-car garage. Do you know if those are front-facing, side-facing?
And that depends, you know, you can have a side-facing garage to where you actually pull it in front of the house and then that's the side.
Courtyard.
It's too far in advance to actually know. What we're hoping to do is sell the lots to private individuals, not builder that wants to come in and build their own custom home. So I wouldn't want to
Yes, sir, please.
Mr. Woody, could you step over to the microphone, please?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I've done a lot of development in my day, and I think to help settle some easement, I would be in agreement if you've got the engineer drawings of the stormwater. I think what I'm hearing from everybody is if it's a 24-inch pipe that needs to be crossed, I'm in more than agreement to do the 24-inch drain if we can have the city surveyor mark exactly where the pipe needs to go to where I'm in full agreement. There's no reason to tear out a driveway and tear out stormwater when if that pipe's placed in the right position and the right size, it makes it so easy to just hook on to tie for whatever. So I'm in total agreement if the city can get that engineering completed by the time we're looking at building. And you know, it's the 6 houses aren't gonna go up at once, you know. I may be the first to build out there myself, you know, so it's gonna be a slow process, but I'm in full agreement with that. I mean, that just makes sense. If it's a 30-inch pipe or 24, 18, and then put it in the right place also.
Right.
You know, it could be, you may have to alter the existing ditch out there to put the pipe in, so I'm in full agreement with that.
Thank you. Are we,
We haven't engineered to that spec yet. It's just conceptual at this point, but I'll be certainly working with you on that.
right, thank you. Do I have any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with the covenants.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Dickinson. There's
Second.
Second by Mr. Garrett. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in.
Y'all will be very pleased with how.
Thank you. Stone Creek subdivision Phase 2 final plat. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the, like you said, the Phase 2 final plat approval for Stone Creek subdivision. All the development agreements that are necessary for unfinished improvements are in place, and the applicant is just looking to get this approval done so that they can record the subdivided lots and begin building out Phase 2.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Kelly?
In proportion, the size of the lots that are in Phase 2 versus Phase 1, are they, and you may not have calculated this, I'm catching you off guard, I'm sure, but it appears to be that there are quite a number of 8,000 plus square foot lots. Certainly there's some 15, but in proportion, is this about a balance as to the Phase 1? Or do you think there's more smaller lots?
I will agree that you have caught me completely off guard, but I think there is a larger proportion of the small lots to the larger lots in this, but it is compliant with the agreed upon minimums.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Any other questions for Mr. Kelly? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve by Ms. Malcolm. Do I hear a second? Second by Ms. Crawford. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the application of beer and wine on-premise consumption at the Southern Ox. Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes, Mayor, that application is in order.
Thank you. Is the business owner here, Mr. Bauer? Would you like to speak?
I just want to say thank you for allowing me to stand in front of you today. I also just am looking forward to providing an additional entertainment opportunity for the people of Monroe. So thank you.
Great. We've heard good things about it. I hate that I couldn't be there this past weekend. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Ross Bradley. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Malcolm. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Resolution, Georgia Cities Week, April 19th through 25th, 2020. Mr. Rosenthal?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution of the City of Monroe recognizing Georgia Cities Week as April 19th through 25th, 2020, and encouraging all citizens to support the celebration and corresponding activities. whereas the city government is the closest to most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents, and whereas city government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to and understanding of its many responsibilities, and whereas city government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along their understanding of public services and their benefits, and whereas Georgia Cities Week is a very important time to recognize the important role played by city government in our lives, and whereas this week offers an important opportunity to spread the word to all the citizens of Georgia that they can shape and influence this branch of government which is closest to the people, and whereas the Georgia Municipal Association and its member cities have joined together to teach students and other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information, and whereas Georgia Cities Week offers an important opportunity to convey to all the citizens of Georgia that they can shape and influence government through their civic involvement. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Monroe declares April 19th through 25th, 2020 as Georgia Cities Week. Be it further resolved that the City of Monroe encourages all citizens, city government officials, and employees to do everything possible to ensure that this week is recognized and celebrated accordingly. So passed and adopted this 10th day of 2020, Mayor. That is the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Ross Bradley and a second by Mr. Little. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Church Street and Davis Street traffic calming, Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we get into it, I think Mr. Bradley had some letters in it.
I did. I have two property owners there that had sent me letters that they wanted to come tonight, but circumstances around they weren't able to. I told them I'd be happy to read their letters to put them in the record.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Please proceed.
The first one is from Mr. Melvin Music. Mr. Bradley, I'm writing this letter in the event that I'm unable to return in time for tomorrow's city council meeting. I have to travel to Columbus, Georgia tomorrow on business and may not be able to return in time to be present. I wanted to voice my support for any measure that can be taken to slow down traffic on Church Street as well as Davis Street. I own 502 East Church Street and 903 East Church Street, as well as 401 South Madison Avenue, which is at the corner of Davis and Madison. I can personally attest to the danger that traffic poses at all these locations, as I have witnessed the speed at which cars fly down Church and Davis Streets. It is my understanding that the proposed solutions are facing criticism due to being, quote, ugly, end quote. While I do not believe them to be so, I can assure you that a fatality of one person will be far uglier. Children often travel the Pilot Park via both of these streets, and I'm surprised that no accident has already occurred. I realize that your position must be one of neutrality. However, I strongly urge you to please proceed with any and all means available to prevent an accident due to speeding vehicle traffic on these roads. That was the first one. The second one is from Mr. John Ryan McGreevy. Dear Councilman Bradley, thank you for receiving the attached letter of support for your proposed traffic calming project written by me on behalf of myself and my family. We live at 901 East Church in your district, and we're thrilled to hear of this project. Unfortunately, we cannot attend the meeting tonight on the topic, so we submit this letter for your consideration. And the letter itself is, I am a member of your district in Monroe, and I encourage you to confidently move forward with the proposed traffic calming project on Church Street and Davis Street. As a homeowner on East Church Street, father to an outdoor-loving toddler, and husband to a pregnant wife, I am thrilled to see your work with this project. My family and I strongly encourage you to continue with the current plans for the traffic calming project for two key reasons. One, speeding cars and motorcycles. We commend the increased efforts of the Monroe Police Department and Walton County Police Department to enforce speed limits on East Church Street. Unfortunately, the individual choosing to endanger our family by speeding through the neighborhood continues to do so despite signage saying children are at play. Moreover, East Church Street seems to be a sought-after location to speed upon, with motorcyclists testing the limits of their bikes while recording their actions with helmet cameras. Likewise, vehicles continue to peel out of the convenience store at East Church and Harris Street, often losing traction before racing in front of our home. Number two, illegal tractor-trailer traffic. Despite the best efforts of the Monroe Police Department, the Walton County Police Department, and those involved in producing extra signage with fluorescent flags near the intersection of Hammond Street and East Church Street, illegal traffic by tractor-trailers remains a daily problem for our family. Having large trucks thunder past our home shakes the structure and leaves us concerned for the safety of our son. On multiple instances, we have had trucks nearly strike our stroller as they could not or chose not to stop at the crosswalk we were using to reach Pilot Park. Speeding vehicles on Church Street is the single largest concern we have as homeowners in your district. Illegal tractor-trailer traffic is not far behind. These issues make us question whether it's safe for us to walk downtown or to Pilot Park with our child. Our experiences highlight the importance of your planned traffic calming project and assure me that A, increased signage, police presence, and enforcement are not enough to solve these issues, and B, immediate implementation of your engineer-led design is the most prudent and necessary course of action. We appreciate the concerns other residents are presenting in opposition to this project, but we politely disagree. We do not find the proposed project unsightly, and even if we did, our concern for safety far outweigh our concern with the critique of your project. Thank you for taking time to consider our voice in this matter. Those are the two letters that I had, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Mr. Probst?
Thank you, Mayor. So before you have the bids from Triscapes Incorporated. Is a low bid in the amount of $222,404.50. This is for construction of traffic calming features on Church Street and Davis Street. As you know, Church Street is median islands, Davis Street is speed tables. Behind me here, what I tried to do is give a little bit different view of actual median islands that are in place. This is in Berkeley Lake, Georgia, over Gwinnett County. This is what a median island of approximate detail to what we'll be doing looks like at around 45 feet away. Not terribly intrusive. What we'll be doing is a yellow center stripe through the middle, and then around the edge it'll be a white stripe. Here it's shown in yellow, but our construction details showed as white. We'll have a little bit more of a rollback curb so that emergency responders can get through there a little bit easier. It's still going to be a deterrent for tractor trailers as they come through. It's more of an impediment for them. And as far as our departments, I've spoken with Chief Watts, Chief Owens over at the fire, Jeremiah Still, our streets director, Danny Smith, our solid waste director. Everybody's on board with how these are designed. We've talked about them in various meetings about minor modifications, and we are where we are via several months of tweaking the design of these islands. Also note here, we'll keep ours more weed-free than this. The middle is a brick paver inset. Ours will have a little bit more brick paver to it, less concrete. And of course, the curbing will be a little bit different, a little bit gentler roll to it all the way around. The signage on either side is 36 inches tall, so it's not terribly obtrusive to your ingress-egress view. And this is what one looks like from 100 feet away. Not terribly obtrusive, in my opinion. This is the general cross-section detail of what the island will look like. Most of the median itself is quite small in scale of the striping. The striping is what makes it look much larger than it really is. And here's the general placement. As Sam noted last week, driveways were taken into careful consideration. There may be some that are closer to other driveways than others, but there is not one that completely blocks any driveway for ingress or egress. It's not completely blocking. Okay. And then here on Davis Street, you see the speed tables that are in place here. Actually, these go out a little bit further. on Ash Street. I didn't have the updated model.
Question, why did we do one different on Church Street than we did Davis Street?
So in the study, the speed tables are more appropriate for a lower volume street. Davis is also much wider than Church Street. That's generally a better fit for such a wide boulevard like Davis Street. Church Street is a very narrow, there's only 40 feet of right-of-way in most spots in the historic district. And really, median islands are about the only traffic calming feature studied that would be appropriate. It also allows for better ingress and egress because there are a lot of curb cuts along the way.
You showed one slide where it's showing basically the cutout is basically look like 6 inches from the sidewalk. If you all keep saying you're worried about something being dangerous, that's a more dangerous look than what you actually have now.
You're talking about Davis or Church?
Church, go back a couple of slides, couple more. No, back. That's what I'm talking about. You have actually brought the road closer to the sidewalk where you said pedestrians gonna actually be walking. I don't know how you would think that's more safer, because I don't actually think that's gonna slow cars down, to be honest. And I don't see how the police department don't think that's gonna impede them. If you saying it's gonna slow other cars down, the natural response should be it have to slow theirs down because they would actually be running faster than 40 miles an hour trying to get to a house. So what y'all saying and what we doing don't actually add up to me. As far as that picture, and you saying this gonna be more safer because for some reason we think we're gonna slow cars down. If a tractor trailer coming down that truck, you don't think that sign gonna stop them. They'll roll right over that sign or beside it. That's not gonna change. Now, the police department did do an excellent job this weekend because I know I saw 3 cars pulled over myself on Church Street. That may be something that we need to actually look into before we dive all the way heads into this to see if that could actually slow some of that. Because tickets usually give you a different outlook on how you actually gonna drive once you get 1 or 2. I don't think what we doing now is really gonna slow traffic down, to be honest. And I know that's look more dangerous than what we actually have, if the truth be told. Let me ask, are you all?
No, sir. No, sir. You ask me, I'll handle asking the
You
entire.
speak for you, he speak for him.
No, sir. That's not the way it goes.
David, are
No,
you
sir.
all?
Mr. Garrett?
Do you all actually
Mr. Garrett?
have?
Do not.
Well, you all can actually talk about this
Do
a
not
little
answer
bit
that
to
question,
see if
please,
you
sir.
all can actually work that out.
Yield to the chair. I do have comments at the appropriate time.
Yes, sir. If you'd like you to direct your question to the chair, I'll ask Mr. Dixon.
You can't answer because you ain't in the meeting that they have. It needs to be someone that actually in the meeting. If you all had a little more time, do you all think you can actually come to a common ground that you would be satisfied and they would be satisfied?
Mr. Garrett, again, direct your questions to the chair. Do not direct them to the audience.
I'm directing to Mr. Dixon. You can't answer it because you don't stay on Davis Street. I mean Church Street.
Mr. Garrett?
And this is David project.
Mr. Garrett.
So he is the one that needs to be actually answering these questions.
Mr. Garrett, I appreciate your comments, and I don't mind you asking Mr. Dickinson, and I appreciate that, but it seemed to me you were directing your question to the audience.
No, the reason you felt like that because you interrupted me before I actually got a chance to speak.
No, sir.
Because if you hadn't, you would have heard me call David's name.
I appreciate your.
That's the reason you felt like that.
I appreciate.
Listen sometime, don't talk all the time.
I appreciate your saying that as you continue to talk. But yes, sir, Mr. Dickinson, would you like to answer the question?
May I comment? Okay. This is where I am on this. And I'm gonna ramble, I guess, a little bit. First, my dear wife got it wrong about how many years we lived over there. She must have forgot a few of them. We've been there 39 years. And when we moved to Church Street, it was not a historic district. we helped get it, that designation. When we moved there, those houses were being chopped up in apartments. There was all sorts of bad stuff going on. And all of that's gone now. That neighborhood was really thriving until the recession hit. And it hit that neighborhood hard, like it hit most neighborhoods. It's now building back again. And I'm very encouraged that we have young people moving to that street who have children and who buy into what we're trying to do citywide, which is make this a walkable, golf cartable, cyclable community. I have met with my neighbors who have expressed opposition to this. I've explained to them, I don't have that opposition. I have a different opinion. And I think the time is now to do something about this. I'm a runner. I'm a cyclist. I will not ride my bicycle on Church Street. It's too dangerous. Running on that street is dangerous. I see things happen over there all the time that are what I call the near misses. Nobody's been hit, nobody's been killed, but it's just a matter of time. There is a graphic I thought we would have tonight, but it shows a pedestrian's survival chances at different speed rates. And it is truly astounding. If a pedestrian or cyclist is hit by a car at 40 miles an hour, you got a 90% chance of being dead. Drop it down 10 miles an hour to 30, your chance of survival goes up to 50%. But at 20 miles an hour, that pedestrian or cyclist has a 90% chance of surviving. You need to take that seriously. As everybody knows, I'm also a lawyer. I've represented a number of cyclists hit by cars. Look at the data. I went back and looked at that. In 2019, in the United States, we had the highest rate of deaths of pedestrians and cyclists since 1990. It's an astounding increase. That is happening while the fatality rate in general car wrecks is going in the opposite direction. Why is that? Because we've got so much traffic and everybody's in a hurry and folks are not looking out for pedestrians, cyclists, people in golf carts, all of the things that we say that we want for our community. So last time we met, I expressed some concern about these islands being a little bit ugly. I would like for them to be a little better looking. I concede that. But I have said to my friends and neighbors, give me a better alternative. I met with Ms. Green yesterday, and she shared with me some ideas. I brought those ideas back this morning and talked with Mr. Probst about them. The engineers had looked at those things, and basically where we are now in the city of Monroe with what we have to work with, those are just not viable options for Church Street. They're just not. The engineers have looked at them. So, is it a perfect solution? No. But we have to start somewhere. We have to do something before we have the fatalities happen. And folks have said things like, well, I'm worried about my property values. I just don't see that. I have seen no data that shows that having these types of traffic control harm property values. I have no opposition to having one right in front of my house. And I want everybody to understand, those islands, their exact locations can be adjusted. So, you know, Mr. and Ms. Seibert, if you're that concerned about having one directly in front of your house, let's just back that one up. we'll put it between my house and the Davises' house, because the Davises are not opposed to this. I've talked to them, they're in favor of it. They have little children that play out in their yard, which is very close to the street, and they're worried about somebody running over them. I am too. We're fixing to spend $500,000 to upgrade Pilot Park. It is our little kid park. Well, it's not going to be worth much if we spend all that money and little kids can't get to it without worrying about being run over. So I feel like somehow that we have really gotten into sort of a fear-based way of responding to this that I just don't share. And I'm willing to take a chance. We got to start somewhere. And I'm one of those people, I would never put something in somebody else's neighborhood that I wouldn't put in my own. We've got to do something.
No, ma'am, I'm sorry.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Before you seemed like you were going to get ready to make a motion. Do we have any other questions or comments?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Who saw what you saw? Did anybody else in here see what David saw? Because he said he actually received something that I didn't get a chance to see. Did you see what he's talking about?
He received it from one of his constituents.
Gotcha. But he said he shared it with Logan.
He just shared some comment with me this morning.
Oh, so it wasn't nothing that the young lady
yeah, I
was.
didn't give him the photos, but we talked about, I think I showed them to you. I think I had them on my cell phone.
Gotcha, because I would be interested in actually seeing what the ideas that she's saying she could offer.
Well, part of it
If it
was
won't
like
work.
one of those things where you change the nature of the pavement. You like cut out sections of the asphalt, you go in and you put in, like the brick pavers. There were a couple of those photos. Those, as I understand it, according to the engineers, and I think they're correct, are more appropriate to a street that has a far lower volume of traffic than Church has. So that's why those kind of things don't work over there. The other things that would be great would be something like the traffic circles, but there's no way we can do those on Church. We don't have enough right-of-way, and we're not about taking people's front yards out and such, which is what you'd have to do the full circle.
Logan, did you actually talk to the engineers? Because this ain't.
Yeah, regarding what question in particular, sir?
If the whatever she proposed, would it actually work? Because this is my first time hearing about this.
As far as paver insets?
Yeah.
So,
I guess,
yeah,
like I
did.
said, we in the blind, because I don't think none of the council members actually know what y'all talking about,
Well,
except you and Dave.
Well, that came up this morning, actually. So I did discuss that with the engineer briefly. It's not a recommended traffic calming feature. Does it work in really low volume, low speed areas, like urban centers or parking lots around shopping malls, things of that nature? Yeah, it does. There's also going to be a noise factor associated with paver insets. It'll sound like rumble strips at 35 plus miles per hour. So for that reason, it's not really recommended in a neighborhood setting.
Gotcha.
But they do look nice.
Can you clarify one thing? I think when you were sharing the presentation, or the proposal from the engineers, you said that this was the only alternative to a street that was comprised of a 40-foot right-of-way.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do, this is a historic neighborhood, especially in these few blocks, was to preserve the trees, the general aesthetic feel of that neighborhood by not taking any more property, not taking down your trees, and not zigzagging the sidewalk back and forth. You see here, this one's cut in here in this example behind me, but a lot of times they'll move the sidewalk over a little bit. What we would do aesthetically here is add a little bit of landscaping on the approaches. So just before and aft of the turn, that'll give you a little bit of additional visual friction, as we've already mentioned. which just adds to that calmness of the traffic. Is the best engineering in the world going to stop the stupidest driver out there? Absolutely not. So, I mean, you're going to have somebody jump a curb sometime at some point. The same can be had right now, but at probably a much greater speed. That's the gist of the engineering and the thought behind this and the study behind this over the past year, is just trying to lower the chances of a higher speed collision with pedestrians.
And Mr.
Anybody been hit
Probst,
on Church Street?
one other thing for clarification. You and I this morning, I was after you again about this idea of any citizen's driveway being blocked such that that citizen could not go in both directions. And in particular, I was talking to you about Ms. Green's. I want to make sure we're absolutely clear on this. No citizen's access to go east or west on the street will be impeded by the location of an island. Absolutely ironclad guaranteed.
Right, so if we come to a point to where, Ms. Green, is it, if we find that you still feel it's a little bit too much to get in or out of your driveway, I know it's right next to that alleyway, that's something we can probably scale back by about a foot or move it by a foot or two, just to make sure that you have the proper clearances there on those driveways. But really, what you see in some of these graphics, you notice the little detail inset. Most of that is striping. Very little will be the actual paved median, and those will not be set directly in front of any driveways.
Are we gonna move the sidewalks or no?
No, we won't move the sidewalks because there's no right-of-way room.
Do we have any other questions?
I have a question. As you, most of you all know, I have 3 young kids. One's about to be 4, one's 2, and one's a newborn. We have a double stroller, pushed around all the time. I know a lot of the comments from the against party mentioned in what you're talking about now, the street being close to the sidewalk. I think right now we got an average of probably around 12 to 18 inches of grass.
It varies throughout that whole.
So in these areas where it is getting close to the sidewalk, is it possible to go above the standard 6 or 8 inch curb and make it a 10 to 12 inch curb? I'm having a hard time understanding how moving it closer to the sidewalk is gonna make it safer or less safe.
Well, let me address that, Mr. Bradley, because I run through there all the time. There are places like in front of Ms. Fielder's house where there's no grass. It tapers down. Well, in part of it, but down at the end, right where the intersection is with Bell Alley, it's about that wide. So if I'm walking or running through there or anybody else, you're right on the street. If I'm gonna be there on that sidewalk, I'd rather have cars at 20 miles an hour than have them at 40. Because then I got a 9 out of 10 chance of living.
I guess, yeah.
9 out of 10 being dead.
I'm having a hard time understanding the argument against it when it's that close, because for us, and, you know, I don't let my kids just wander up and down the sidewalk when I'm walking with them. I try to remain as vigilant as possible, that I'm on the street side, they're on the housing side, eyes up, and I don't understand how that can be a bad thing, any worse than it already is now. If we want the leisurely stroll, we take them to a field or the park. I would welcome these on Highland Avenue where we live. We have the speed bumps currently that are great where the speed bump is, because it slows traffic down, and then people try to make up as much lost
I
time as
run
possible.
on that street too, and they don't work.
No. So I just curious if raising that curb is an option where it does get close to the sidewalk to maybe prevent somebody from hopping the curb and hitting.
Is that an option?
I'd have to explore that. I couldn't
Is
answer
that,
right away.
is that something you could check with the engineers on?
It is. And again, to Ms. Malcolm's question, these were really the only features available in a 40-foot right-of-way street. We looked at chicanes early on. If you remember, I shared that with you about a year or so ago. or a mixed bag of chicanes and islands and tables. It just didn't work without acquiring a lot of right-of-way and tearing out a lot of this historic charm that's in the East Church neighborhood. So, 2 years ago roughly, you guys tasked me with finding the right calming devices throughout the city, and we start here. So this is what we've come up with. Is it perfect? Is it a silver bullet for all speeding and trucks and whatnot? No, but I think it's a pretty good answer to what you guys have requested.
Are there any other questions? No, sir. Any other questions? If hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with the traffic calming measures at Church Street and Davis Street.
Have a motion by Mr. Bradley for approval of Church and Davis traffic calming. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dickinson. Any discussion? Hearing none,
I got
all.
a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
Ross asked, could the curves be lifted? Logan said he would check on it.
And I know that if
So if you all trying to vote on it now, what's the purpose of him actually checking on it?
well, if the answer
you're
is
not-
no, I would still be 100% for it. If the answer is yes, I know that Logan will do everything possible to make this as safe a project as possible, and that he would make sure that happened.
So you don't think that's something that we can actually come back next month with an answer? If we can or can't do it?
It wouldn't affect my decision either way, so therefore my motion still stands as stated.
Oh, so you were just talking then? You said that wouldn't affect your answer one way or another if it were higher or not? You still want them there regardless?
Yes, I see a benefit either way. If it turns out that that is something that we're able to do, then I would 100% support that as well.
Yeah, if I can explore that with the contractor, I will do that. It may result in a slight change order for additional concrete, but that's entirely possible. Should you approve tonight, or should you wait?
Mr. Mayor, my motion still stands.
Yes, sir, thank you. Any additional discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
I'm gonna oppose.
Yes, sir. Motion carries with one opposition.
Myosha.
I'm sorry, Ms. Crawford. 2 in opposition. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the lease agreement for Midland Sidewalk and Shared Parking Lot, Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. As
One
discussed.
second, please.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. As discussed, last week, we've been working on a new sidewalk and parking lot agreement. This is on Midland and Washington, and it'll be a shared parking agreement at the Peters and Foster's lot. They're gonna grant us some easements to construct some additional sidewalks on Midland, and we'll be constructing on existing right-of-way on Washington Street. The shared parking will result in approximately 58 spaces. There will be no annual cost to us. The cost of construction will be payment in lieu. The bids came back, and you can see that in a moment. Essentially, with all sidewalks and parking rehab for us, for public use, it came out to $2,817 per space, which is considerable amount cheaper than land acquisition for a sidewalk or even a parking deck, which can run $25,000 per space. So this is a pretty good deal to utilize existing asphalt for the public benefit here. We have this lease agreement before you, so if you have any questions on the specifics, let me know, and then we'll move on to the construction agreement subsequently.
Are there any questions for Mr. Probst? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Ms. Malcolm. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dickinson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Next, bid award for Midland Washington sidewalk and shared parking lot. Mr. Probst.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This is a request of the council to award the low bid for construction of the Midland Washington sidewalk and parking project in the amount of $163,383.05 to Soul Construction LLC for the base bid, alternate A2 bid, alternate B, and alternate B2 bid, contingent upon a full execution of the development agreement that you just approved.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions, comments from Mr. Probst? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the bid as stated.
I have a motion to approve the bid as stated by Mr. Dickinson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Adcock. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming in, and thank you for your input tonight. I'll take a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Bradley. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Malcolm. All in favor, please.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Good night, everybody. Thank you.